Faith inspires us to stand, to be bold and courageous, to do what is right, even in the face of tyranny. That's the story of history. That's the story of America. Freedom Encounter is a museum, a theater, a children's play area, a restaurant, and a bookstore and resource center. The play area will teach the basic principles of freedom and government, but will especially focus on the dignity and the potential of every child. We'll offer the best resources available, books, DVDs, and curriculums, which will educate and encourage guests long after their visit.
It's Katie. If your son was under the watchful eye of the federal government and potentially facing a charge that could land him in prison for 40 years, what would you do weeks before everything happened? Would you plunk down $2.5 million and buy a piece of property in Branson, Missouri, and start a nonprofit which will create a museum to teach us about American history, which will weave in religion and make sure that the liberal agenda is squashed? That's what Jim Bob Duggar did. Okay, I'm trying not to get political here, but this is a little bit odd. So Jim Bob Duggar has ties to Missouri, and I actually got wind of this like earlier in the spring. And at one point I was not able to actually verify that this was connected to Jim Bob, but finally I've been able to connect the dots. And Jim Bob Duggar, through his Yellow Ribbons Ministry, which is a nonprofit he founded in April, bought and swooped up the Tony Orlando Theater in Branson, Missouri. 61,000 square feet of theater and museum square footage. And it is actually being housed with the Freedom Journey experience, and the Freedom Encounter is on the market to be built and remodeled by none other than Dan Myers. So I was taking a look through things, and it looks like this is actually underway, and it's 61,000 square feet, and it sits on 10 acres. And so Jim Bob and Michelle actually opened a nonprofit in Missouri under the name Yellow Ribbon Ministries, and it has Jim Bob listed and Miss Michelle. And then when you look at the address of Tony Orlando's Ministries, you then can cross-reference that to property records, which then shows that the property is owned by none other than Yellow Ribbon Ministries. So while Josh was in the middle of a huge investigation, Jim Bob Duggar threw down $2.5 million on a piece of property. So if you are ever wondering if Jim Bob is broke, the answer is likely no. And if he needs to move assets and sell some, it looks like he's got some options. So this was actually an article that went out, and it's interesting because Jim Bob is making it so that his name is not attached to this, and I don't know if that's on purpose or not. But what they're hoping to do is, this actually appeared in Branson Tri-Lakes News, and it says that the Freedom Encounter will give families, church groups, school groups, and more the opportunity to walk through the history of tyranny, which led to the founding of America and beyond. The journey will additionally be enhanced with music, lighting, special effects, and interactive technology, and many quotes from the past will tell the inspiring story. So the founder and president is Darren Myers. This is a longtime friend of the Duggars and super duper fundamentalist and super right winger. And he said that he sees the future attraction as an extension of the Freedom Journey show, which is a show that's at this event. And this is what he said about this. He said, "We want to take the elements of this very emotional show and build them into a permanent attraction which can be experienced all year long. Guests of the museum will walk through 9 rooms which represent a man's journey to freedom as expressed in the American founding documents. The faith aspect of the journey will be highlighted, as well as the founder's dependence on the creator. The theater will be the emotional center of the attraction, will feature live actors, original music, and holographic technology to bring the past to life. The indoor children's play area will look like Colonial Village with a 1-room schoolhouse Ben Franklin's invention ship, a Liberty treehouse, and a story porch for reenactors and musicians. So they're making a reenactors basically thing. So if you know anything about the fundies, they really want things to go back to a time when men, only white men, had power and women had no power and they could own slaves. So they're saying that in order to take this to reality, of course, they need to raise money, $5.5 million to renovate the theater, and it's going to be a major effort. They have people like Bill Federer that are helping, a nationally well-known speaker. And the odd part here is that at no place at all in this press release, which went out on April 30th, 2 days after Josh Duggar's arrest, does it mention Jim Bob Duggar. If you go to the website, it has no mention of Jim Bob Duggar. So Jim Bob seems to be almost like this silent investor or this silent partner that actually owns the property, and then these people are using the property for a ministry. It's a way, I guess, as a nonprofit, maybe it's a tax, I don't know. I'm not sure what Jim Bob's involvement is, because when you go to the Freedom Encounter home and you check out the About Us section, it has Darren Myers as the leader, founder, and president, and then it has some other people that look to be slightly tied to the IBLP. So they have Mr. Cleanupper, Dr. David Gibbs, who's the IBLP cleaner-upper. So he actually is the one that played the man that did all the, worked against all the lawsuits against Bill Gothard, did the independent investigation, which said he found no liability by anyone at the IBLP for any of the allegations that were brought forth. So it looks like it's a hodgepodge of fundies and IBLPers that are a part of it, but noticeably missing from this is Jim Bob Duggar. So he's put the capital down for the actual building, but he's actually not listed whatsoever on this, which is so bizarre. And I don't know if they removed this because of the arrest by Josh Duggar. I don't really know. He used to be listed as a real estate investor or on the real estate end of it, and he used to be sort of like on the advisory team, but he's not on the advisory team anymore, so it's kind of weird. So Jim Bob actually is the owner of the property, and then they have this whole Freedom Encounter, and it's going to be some sort of audio-visual museum, which apparently is going to, their mission statement says this: we will combine cinematic music, stunning visuals, special effects, and interactive exhibits to create an experiential museum, holographic theater, and Colonial Village children's area. The immersive experience will use historic quotes to teach the principles of freedom. They also say that freedom is being threatened, so the founders of the founding principles and the founding documents are being ignored or discredited by this generation. As a result, many do not know the truth regarding the history of the freest and most prosperous nation on earth. And I think they're talking about freedom of religion. So they say that America's biggest problem today is ignorance, which is odd since they're all into homeschool. And they use the ATI, which is like super ignorant. And they say America's greatest need has never been more obvious. Education, young families, college students, school children, and immigrants must learn about man's amazing struggle for freedom. And a quote that they have from Woodrow Wilson says, a nation which does not remember that it was yesterday does not know what it is today, nor that it is trying to do. We are trying to do a futile thing if we do not know where we have come from. They said, we want to construct an exciting walkthrough experience to educate and inspire all ages. So what they plan to have is state-of-the-art displays, wall murals, video productions, professional graphics, interactive technology, originally composed music, quotes from American founders, children's displays, and a scavenger hunt. And it looks like when you actually go through this and you explore the content, it's mostly about like religious freedom, because when you get to the bottom, freedom lovers have always thought about future generations more than their own. In fact, many were willing to die for freedom they would never enjoy. Today's generation is greatly indebted to these brave patriots. The baton of freedom has been handed down to us. May this not be a generation who lets it slip, but passes it on with courage, faith, and diligence. And they have quotes from John Quincy Adams, Thomas Jefferson, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and Ronald Reagan. FDR, a Democrat. Wow. Who knew? They actually have a Democrat represented on here. So not that it matters, we just know that these fundamentalists are very conservative, and they really believe that their right to have religious freedom is the problem for everything and the answer to everything, and that we're taking away religious freedoms, which I don't really know How? Because they still have 501(c)(3)s. The government doesn't do oversight on religious programs. They don't do religious oversight or evaluation on religious schools. So there's still a ton of religious freedom. And I think a lot of times they just believe that the social agenda of, the progressive mindset of, social reform, social justice that they don't like, where women become and are given more equality, where there's racial equality, where the LGBTQ are given more rights. A lot of it, and welfare programs, social programs, they don't really like more government. They want less government. It's interesting. I would love to go to this experience and actually be a fly on the wall and like do a walkthrough of this to see what it actually looks like. Maybe when COVID's over or more toned down and I can get my 3rd booster shot, I will go down to Branson and check out the Freedom Encounter, because I'm dying to know what they can teach me about history. If it's anything like the ATI's history, it will include nods and winks at the Confederacy and sadness that they lost. So I'm trying again not to make this political, but this group is a rather radical group. And so if you are a Republican, by no means am I saying that you are a bad person. This is not representative of most Republicans by any means. These people are on the radical right. So there's the radical left that y'all hate, and then there's the radical right that the Dems don't really like. And these people really don't like anyone to have rights except for, white men, sadly. And they try to take away rights from women. So the thing that we'll see with this is interesting. But if your son was about to get arrested, would you be plunking down $2.5 million onto this? And it makes me wonder how much liquid assets they still have at this point. They probably put the money down so that they can put, it's like a tax write-off, and then they have the nonprofit. I don't know, because Jim Bob's name isn't on this. And it's just weird that Jim Bob's name is on the website. He owns the property, but they're making it seem like Freedom Encounter owns it, even though they don't, because when you look at the property records, it's owned by Jim Bob and Michelle. All right, you guys, so what is going on with this? Would you go to the Freedom Encounter? Do you want to learn about their history? Or do you want to live in reality, where the Earth is more than 6,000 years old, where dinosaurs and humans did not exist at the same time, and where evolution actually did happen? Or do you want to live in a world where the Creation Museum happens and the world's only 6,000 years old and literally everything in the world is persecuting you and taking away your rights? And finally, it is not lost on me that while Josh Duggar is working very hard for his freedom, Jim Bob Duggar is trying to teach America about freedom. In Jim Bob Duggar's world, I'm pretty sure Josh would have all the freedom he wants because government would not be able to interfere in the private lives of individuals, and people could do whatever they wanted without repercussions because government bad, God is good, and God is the judger of all. That irony is not lost on me. All right, you guys, tell me what your thoughts are about this in the comments below. Bye.